having a stroke for me has changed my perspective in the sense like, yeah, I hope and still want all those things, in 10, 15, 20 years, but I'm also much more focused on the today, the moment we're in, what do we've got, what's our goals for tomorrow and this weekend. And so our perspective is different in that regard for sure. I think the scariest thing for me was honestly accepting this new version of me, working to find acceptance in this new version of me. And because you're really grieving the old you is what I've come to realize, right? Like this may be a better version of me, but it's taken me, 2.5 years to get there. And I still continue to do daily work on myself and my mindset to feel confident enough in knowing that that's who I am now. This is who I am, and I am more than okay with it.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamas, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Bill from recoveryafterstroke.com. This is episode 129, and my guest today is Jennifer Chapman. Jennifer didn't know that she had a vertebral artery dissection that unfortunately created multiple blood clots, which caused an ischemic stroke. In this interview, we discuss how her perspective on life has changed since the stroke. Now, before we get started, if you have ever wondered what else I can do to help you with your stroke recovery, you should know that you can now get recovery after stroke coaching right from the comfort of your own home. I too am a 3-time stroke survivor, and I have built for you what I was missing when I was sent home from hospital in the hope that you don't have to do stroke recovery as tough as I did. Support packages give you access to a variety of tools 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that you can also work on other areas of stroke recovery like adjusting to your new normal or even managing the grief that you may be feeling for your former self. With tailored support available from $8.50 per week, all Recovery After Stroke support packages bring stroke recovery to you in the comfort of your own home. To try out Recovery After Stroke support and see if it is right for you, you will get the first 7 days free, as well as a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. As a bonus, you will also get 2 face-to-face Zoom support calls with myself to help take your recovery to the next level. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com/support to sign up. It won't cost you anything for the first 7 days, and you will get a full refund if you are not happy after 30 days. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And now it's on with the show. Jennifer Chapman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Yeah, so I spent my career in corporate sales, and was in this position, hustling and grinding every day, and feeling the stress. But I guess I didn't know how much stress I put myself under, right? So, but I was switching roles and positions within the company, and literally the next morning I woke up and was prepared to start my new role and was getting ready to leave for the day and felt overwhelmingly dizzy out of nowhere. We hit, very fast, and was sweating profusely through my clothes and was like, this can't be right. So I laid down for a minute and it didn't subside. So I called a family member and told her I didn't feel right. And she said, "You don't sound right." And I could tell that I was starting to struggle to swallow and my voice was changing. So I was home by myself. So I called 911 and the ambulance came to get me. And I got to the hospital very quickly. Within 15, 20 minutes. But unfortunately, it took them, probably 12 hours for them to determine that I had suffered a stroke at 34. And I think it was because maybe of my age that was not the first thing on their list to consider. I think they thought it was vertigo. So I think that time was crucial, right? Looking back.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. So what kind of stroke was it?
It was an ischemic stroke. So I had a clot, but they didn't find that right away. Like I said, so it took quite a few hours. And once the second MRI showed a picture It had happened in 3 different places in my brain.
So 3 different clots in 3 different locations.
Correct.
Wow. And do they know what was the underlying cause of the clots?
So, Bill, it took 18 months for them to figure out how this happened. And in between that time, they ruled out a lot of things. I wore a heart monitor to make sure there was nothing, no heart issues. I had gone to a hematologist for any blood disorders. They took quite a bit from me that day, but nothing really stood out to them as far as why it would cause a stroke. So I went to several specialists throughout that 18 months, but we finally did another CT scan and an angiogram, and that's where they determined that I had a dissection in the artery in the back of my neck. And it was so small, they didn't see it for clearly quite some time. But and then over time, it had scarred over and is healing on its own. So I didn't have to have surgery or anything. But yeah, talk about anxiety and fear until they found the answer.
Yeah. So anxiety that it's going to happen again, fear that you might die. What were the emotions around that?
Yeah, it was emotional instability for sure. I mean, I was crying every day, questioning every single move that I make and every pain that I felt. If I even remotely felt dizzy for a split second, right? Or if I stood up too fast and fell off, it's like, is this another one? Is this going to happen again? And is it going to be worse this time? Am I going to be able to recover and heal like I did this time? I mean, all those questions run through your head all the time.
And who's living with you? Are you living on your own or do you have family around you?
I am married to my husband of 11 years. We have no children. We do have a chocolate lab who is our child. So he has really been a tremendous support system for me. He wasn't home that day, but he was at the hospital before I could even get there. And it's stayed with me by my side every single day since. So
So, you know how you're experiencing anxiety and fear around the possibility that there might be another stroke. How's your husband coping with that? What is he experiencing, or is he different from you in the way that he handles these types of situations?
he's completely different than me. And it's hard. I can only imagine how hard it is. And maybe it's different from men to women, as the caregivers, as the caretakers, how they handle it. I think that if it were to happen to him, I would still feel anxiety and stress with him and for him. But because it was the opposite way and it happened to me, he came across as an extremely strong person and didn't show any, fear or weakness or stress or anxiety. If he did, I wouldn't know it. And I know he did within the hospital those first couple of days. My friends and family expressed that to me, but I never saw it. I was never aware of any emotion that said that otherwise, aside from he's got me. He's gonna take care of me.
Yeah, caring. Was how many years ago was it?
I will have my 4th anniversary at the end of March this year.
Okay,
So March 30th of 2017.
okay. So have you had a chance to speak to your husband about it since? Have you maybe gone down there and had that conversation with him to actually see what was happening, what the underlying concerns that were, even though he was behaving like a duck,
Mm.
cool and calm and collected on the water, but probably doing some stuff underneath that you couldn't see?
Yes, we've talked about it, but he's not one to get overly deep on his feelings and emotions. He still comes across it's pretty surface level. I know he was concerned and worried, and I heard that from his parents, and his mom was an extreme support system to me as well. So I'm sure she had those conversations with him pretty early on too to see how he was coping and dealing. But um, since then, he just shows me that he cares and is concerned versus talking about it.
Yeah, that's a typical man thing. And I find,
Yeah, I don't think I'm saying anything that's surprising anybody.
no, I keep raising it though, because I think if men do listen to this podcast, I just want to raise it as a point of, we know what you do, we know what you're like, we know what you're not expressing and not sharing. And they might be the things that you need to share and express at some point in time in your life. And you don't have to do it now, just do it when you're ready. But when the time comes, do it then. And I say that as a
Mm,
man who went through stroke. The first episode was nearly 9 years ago. In February, it'll be 9 years. And
okay.
I struggled a lot with the emotional side of it and expressing myself and being more willing to go to those, deep emotional places that a lot of work needed to be done there. There was a lot of work. So
Right.
then finding myself being a little bit strange in a group of other men who wouldn't necessarily go there, and that it was odd that I was going there, and it was I was the odd one out. But they appreciated when I spoke about it. They just didn't engage in the conversation,
That's
and
right. I believe that.
yeah, and then just seeing how my brother reacted as opposed to how I reacted, and then how my dad
Mm,
reacted. So it's a very interesting conversation. And most of the people who approach me to be on a podcast are not men. It's women. And most of the people who are prepared to uh, have coaching are not men; they are women. And most of my little basic version of the way that I sort of judge a situation or things that are going on is starting to show a pattern of men tend to just sit in the background and process things by themselves and do the stiff upper lip kind of thing. So um, it's good that he's got his way of doing it, and that's really important too. That you appreciate that it's his way, and his way doesn't have to be your way, or it doesn't have to be the way that somebody else does it.
100%. That's right. And it's taken, like I said, we've been together 13 years, but it's taken time for me to understand how he does cope and deal with certain things versus the way I do with a lot of things in life, right? Serious situations, not so serious. We handle things completely different, and it's understanding and accepting how each other handles it and being okay with it.
Yeah. So you guys were quite young when you got married. How old were you when you married?
27.
Okay, that's not that young. It seems like, oh, you said you guys were around together for 11 years or longer, or
I got married at 27, so we've been married 11 years, been together 13.
13. Okay. So at 24, you guys you got together. There, was there any
Right.
was there any idea of planning about the future, about how your life was going to pan out and what you guys were going to be doing together and achieve and all that kind of thing?
Yes, we definitely had created a vision together as far as what we wanted our lives to look like, and we knew early on children was not in our by choice. We decided not to have kids. We were both just on the same page with that, and wanted to enjoy our lives and work until we could retire and enjoy travel and the things we wanted to do when we wanted to do them.
How does stroke interrupt your plan for the future? What does it do at the time when it happens in that first, say, 12 months? And now that some time has passed, how has that changed again?
Yeah, great question. I think that first year for both him and I, but I know, speaking for me in recovery, like my brain didn't process any of that. It was much more short term. Like I'm just focusing on, rehabbing and recovering and getting better every day. It was definitely day by day for me for the first year. And I would think that's how he thought of it. But he's always been much more of a long term goal oriented person, whereas having a stroke for me has changed my perspective in the sense like, yeah, I hope and still want all those things, in 10, 15, 20 years. but I'm also much more focused on the today, the moment we're in, what do we've got, what's our goals for tomorrow and this weekend. And so our perspective is different in that regard for sure.
When I had the first episode, the first bleed in the head, I didn't consider my life was going to be potentially lost. I didn't think about that then. Then 6 weeks later, I had another bleed, and that
Wow.
was the one that made me feel like, the next one could be the last one. That was one of the scariest things for me, is that I wouldn't have enough time with my family to tell them what I needed to tell them to make things right, to be a better version of myself, all that stuff. And I
Right.
considered my mortality for the first time. What was the scariest thing for you?
Mm, that's a good question. I think the scariest thing for me was honestly accepting this new version of me. And because really, and it was working with a life coach that I hired about 18 months after I had tried therapy, and that there's a place for therapy, no doubt about it. It just didn't work for me. So I healed through working with a life coach, and um, work working to find acceptance in this new version of me. And because you're really grieving the old you is what I've come to realize, right? Like, this may be a better version of me, but it's taken me, 2.5 years to get there, and I still continue to do daily work on myself and my mindset to feel confident enough in knowing that that's who I am now. This is who I am, and I am more than okay with it.
If you've had a stroke and are in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind, like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously because you've never had a stroke before, you probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
So that was the scary part.
Yeah, that's an interesting, scary part. When most people go into a very different place when they have a stroke. That they're scared about so many other things, and that's okay. For me, I like what you said about the therapy side of it and what got you through. So I'm a coach, and I've been a coach for probably 10 years, and I've coached people in a whole bunch of different areas in their life. It seems like regardless of why they are attracted to me, they've all got the same problems. But I was going to therapy for 20 odd years, 21, 22 years. And at the beginning, it was useful. And then after a few years, it kind of got, this is getting old. I'm getting annoyed with this. It's not working. I'm not solving my problems. What I didn't realize was there was a level of responsibility that I needed to take to solve my own problems. Me going to therapy and just talking about it forever wasn't going to achieve anything. And my therapist was an amazing lady, and she was encouraging me to do all those things. And the reason I continued to go after that first initial block and that hurdle in the first few years of therapy was because I had great rapport with her, and I could go to her and just have one of those real amazing conversations that I couldn't have with anyone else. That wasn't about fixing me. It wasn't about making me better or any of that stuff. It was just about me going and not being judged and having a conversation and sharing myself. And then she had no reason to to question what I was saying, and she made me feel validated that how I was thinking and the things
Mm,
that I was doing were okay and they were on the right track. So then
right.
I found a life coach who said what you need to do is unravel the path towards achieving that particular goal that you want to achieve. What is that path? What does it look like? And what's stopping you from getting there? So, combined with the therapist, me going there and just expressing myself and finding somebody who wouldn't judge me and who would appreciate me for me, um, meant that I could free myself up from not having like-minded people around me, and then I could seek them out by going down this other path of coaching and overcoming my lack of skills. And that's what my biggest concern was when I was growing up. It was I didn't have the skills to achieve these goals, and I thought it was too difficult for me to do. So I
Mm,
love how you also got to that point with therapy being useful for one part of your life, and then actually, I am I saying it correctly? You needed coaching to get you through the path or the process to wherever it was that you wanted to go.
correct. That's exactly right. I felt like therapy, we were, you're diving into your past. And like you said, talking about it, which can very easily become just mentally and emotionally draining, just talking about it every time. But with coaching, it was like, let's accept the current situation, let's understand it, and let's learn how to move forward. And I'm like, yes, that resonated with me. That's exactly what I wanted to do.
That's it. And what's the future about? And how do we get to the future version of you, which is the one that has a new career potentially, or the one that has had some amazing experiences that you never thought you might have, like traveling or playing, a part in some kind of a theater production, whatever it is that your heart desires that gets you
Mm,
moving.
that's exactly right. It was an incredible experience working with her to define what this new version of me is going to look like. And not only that, rebuilding my confidence in myself. I was really struggling with the belief in myself that I am capable of whatever it is that I want to do. And I felt like she believed in me before I could believe in myself. For some, I was really struggling to wrap my head around, taking these big leaps that before I knew I could take without a doubt. But now what's stopping me? No one else but me.
Yeah, always.
That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
coaching.
Getting out of my own head.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And taking action, gutsy action to move forward and finally connect with that person, finally do something about that thing, and finally, risk being rejected, finally overcoming your monkey brain and the ideas that it's throwing out there about why it's so difficult or what's not possible. What labels had you given yourself before the stroke? So I was a guy who was self-employed, who worked 24 hours a day, 7 day a week. And even if I wasn't at work, I was always thinking about work or doing something that was related to work. And I never had enough time for myself. And I always whinged about that and I always complained about that. And I thought that it was the world that was at fault. That was the kind of way that I labeled myself. And I quickly realized that that version of me wasn't going to help me in my recovery. What kind of labels had you given yourself that had to shift?
That I was more than just a sales rep it was a massive organization, but knowing that I was more than the title of a sales rep, and that was me giving myself that, right? No one else did. I mean, anybody did. I didn't care about that. I had the support before for sure, but um, in wanting to stand on my own 2 feet, aside from being a wife to my husband that had a great job, no doubt about it. But I was at that point establishing myself as a career, you know, sales professional. So that's been a total shift for me now, knowing how much more I am and giving myself that value and that worth as a person.
Yeah. When stroke happens, when stroke happened, did you find that that conversation happened quickly, or did it take some time before you had to go back and reassess?
Nothing, not a lot of conversations happened quickly after, to be honest. It was much more about just the physical action that I had to take to work on myself from a physical recovery standpoint for the first 6, 7, 8 months. And even before that, I rushed back to work. I was asked, I came back because I wanted to feel normal and think that I could just jump right into where I left off and continue to meet those high results and expectations. And they weren't asking that of me. That's what I wanted out of myself. But after a few months of thinking, I was back to normal. It wasn't. It was figuring out, having those conversations of, okay, you're no longer fulfilled selling this or that. What do you want to do? What is your sole purpose telling you to do here? And that's when I had conversations with the leadership team, and they were super supportive with me, and were willing to make something work if we could make it work as far as being in a role. But I knew I had to step away because I knew I was meant to do something more.
Yeah, I like it. I was a bit thick. Like, I didn't realize that I was meant to do something more. I just realized that I had to stop doing things the way that I was doing them, because obviously it wasn't working, and I wasn't enjoying my life. I didn't. Isn't it weird that I didn't even realize that I wasn't enjoying my life? I just was really angry about it and used to take it out on everybody else.
That's interesting.
I had no idea. So my coaching is what helped me understand that there's some joy to be had at some point down the road somewhere. And again, it wasn't an awareness that I had. It was just a path that I was following because somebody was guiding me beautifully down to that path. And I remember getting to about 2015 or something like that, which was just a few months after, maybe it was a year after brain surgery or a few months after brain surgery. And I thought, why don't I just do a podcast where I interview people and talk about stroke? Because I think what I was lacking was the connecting with people that were like me now, and that I understood, and who really understood me. And I had that podcast going for about 20 or so episodes, and I hadn't interviewed many stroke survivors. And while I was doing the podcast, I was just interviewing people who were recovering from different ailments and different health issues. And I related to them to an extent, and we had some amazing conversations, and I called it the Transit Lounge Podcast. And it took me about a year or more to do those 20 episodes. And then as I continued to understand what podcasting was about and why I was doing it, it happened, I reckon, 2 years later, where the light bulb moment occurred when I realized that what I'm doing is actually helping me in my recovery, and at the same time as helping other people. And oh my, could it be possible that that's part of my purpose in life, is to really connect with people who I can help, and then also have those people help me in this really loving two-way relationship that just came. And if I had to think about that and try and find a way to get to that, I don't think I would have got there. But the fact that I was just doing and being and enjoying this process is what made me reflect 4 or 5 years later and go, well, that's one of the best things I ever did, was just do something, even though I don't know what it's going to mean in 4 or 5 years. And even though I don't have to commit to it, just do it and see what comes of it. Do you find yourself being down the road and then turning back and going, well, if I never did that thing, or if I never had that experience, that never would have led to the next one, and then never led to the next one. And then I wouldn't have had this amazing 12 months of growth or expanse or whatever. Is that familiar?
It's amazing to think that if I hadn't had the stroke, I would like to think that I was still at that company, thriving and being a successful leader at that company, and have worked my way up, but almost 4 years ago, my life completely changed. And after, working with my coach to realize this happened for me, not to me, that this happened for a reason, and really understanding what the reason is and my why. Um, Looking back, I have no other thing to say but that I'm thankful that it happened, because it's brought me to where I am now, and it's brought me to what I look forward to doing moving forward, which is serving others and being able to coach others that feel stuck. They don't necessarily have to be stroke survivors, obviously, although that is who I resonate the most with. But I feel like there's lots of people out there that are looking to overcome these mental and emotional challenges after a life-changing event or trauma, and they're just trying to figure out, how do I accept and adapt and embrace the new me? So yeah, it's crazy that it's taken time, and that someone can say they're thankful, but it's truly a blessing.
I say the same thing, and many people can't yet say that, and that's okay.
Right.
I relate to what you're saying about helping others and supporting other people. What I realized was that stroke survivors had the same problems before stroke that they have after stroke, but now they might have a few extra ones that are actually because of the stroke. So when you're coaching a stroke survivor, it's not the stroke that you're coaching them to overcome or get over. You're actually coaching them to overcome the shit that came before that has now reared its ugly head again, and in a bigger and more urgent way, because now life for me could be over. Or, oh my God, I haven't done all this stuff that I was supposed to have done because I made all these ridiculous excuses. And now look at me now. I can't walk or can't use one of my arms. And here I am with extra problems. And now I really have problems. Whereas before it was just in my head, it was just stories. So when I come across somebody who needs help, stroke is my platform. It's what I use to connect with people. If I didn't use stroke, I wouldn't know how to connect with you. We wouldn't be able to connect, right? So now I use this weird word, I call it stroke, and now all of a sudden people connect. Now with other people, it might be a hobby. They might be into drone photography. And what they find from drone photography isn't other people who know how to take photos with a drone. It's somebody who they can relate to, who shares their pain, their passion, their ideas, their creativity. And the drone is just this weird thing that we squeeze in the middle to make a connection.
Right. Yeah, I totally understand that, and I'm on the same page with you on that. I feel like the problems that I thought I had before, that I thought were a big deal, aren't that big a deal anymore. That's what I've come to realize. Like, really, I feel like I'm so hyper aware of everything now, good, bad, or indifferent. But what problems am I really sweating here? Was I really sweating over, traffic that day, which used to, I could really have gotten worked up about, since I was on the road all the time. Like, now it'll be okay. I'll get to where I need to get when I need to get there, like really trying to manage the stress level, and making sure I'm in a calm state of mind as much as I possibly can be, because the stress isn't worth it. It's really trying to manage that, right? It's the mental health piece that's so crucial in recovery.
Do you feel like the stress is something that you created bad habits around and weren't aware of it? So the reason I ask that is because I I truly feel like my stress, when I create stress, it's, again, I just said it, like I create it. I know there's an environment or a situation
Right,
around
exactly.
me, but I create it. Do you feel like you fell into some bad habits just because of life, or I don't know what, not paying attention enough?
So yeah, I growing up always I've been an extremely competitive person. So whether that was playing sports growing up, um, or any type of competition, at work, since I'm in sales, there's always competition to hit numbers. And because I was a competitive person and cared so much about winning, that was the stress I put on myself. Thinking that I was competing with other people and I would put these ridiculous expectations on myself. Yeah, there was corporate expectations, but ultimately if I was going to win, I was going to do what it took, but I put all that on myself, which isn't worth it at the end, to feel the way you're going to feel to try and win what? I mean, so it was just that shifted mindset for me. The competitive side of me helped in recovery, I will tell you, because I was trying to beat what I accomplished the day before. And the athlete and competitor in me, that's where I thrived, no doubt about it. But yeah, from a mindset standpoint, taking that level, knowing how to manage and take that level of stress down, because like you said, we put it on ourselves.
As an athlete, if you're preparing for an event and you're stressed, how well are you going to achieve that in that event?
It depended. It depended I grew up, tennis was my sport of choice.
Yeah, so if you're stressed about what happened in the car park or what happened on the way to the game, how well is that? How much is that going to help you with the game if you don't let that go?
Yeah, typically not well. I'm going to beat myself
Yeah,
before they're going to beat me. Like it's what I've done, right? My preparation, or what I've put in my head before I stepped out onto the court. If I was in a good headspace, it would go so much better. Looking back, and being able to process all this now, it's like, oh man, I got myself into all kinds of trouble, and I did a lot of damage to myself, let alone the competition that was out there.
and isn't it interesting that as somebody who had been coached for a long time in tennis, you knew that when you're stressed and you take that onto a game, into a game, that's going to impact your performance. There's so many people who participate in sports that know that, yet we don't do that in life. We don't have that conversation. We don't know that about our life. So we'll leave the stress behind when we go on the court and have a great game. And we'll say, yeah, I was in the zone and everything went right for me today and I was feeling great, etc. And all the steps that you took to get to that point to be great in the game. You probably meditated or ate well the day before. You probably did all these amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
You had your preparation and your process, and then you go into regular life and you've got no process, no preparation, nothing. You just turn up and you just play out all the crazy habits.
That's right. It's it's incredible, what can happen in your life if you just know how to properly take care of yourself in all aspects, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the things. Have if you can put a routine in place, every day, every morning, whatever that looks like, knowing to get good regular sleep at night, eating great meals, drinking a lot of, enough water, getting your 30 minutes of exercise, maybe practice gratitude journaling, which I didn't do until after all this had occurred, but what that can do to shift your mindset as well. But just to be in a good headspace, how much more productive and successful you'll be that day versus the self-sabotage you can do to yourself.
So good. What was the hardest thing you've had to overcome so far? So whether that be cognitive or physical, what are some of the things that you've had to overcome that were caused by the stroke?
Yeah, so I'm blessed physically that if you saw me on the street, no one would ever know I've had a stroke. So I'm well aware of that and incredibly thankful that I was able to overcome the physical challenges. The biggest deficit that I have that no one can see is that I lost my left peripheral vision. So I don't have about 40% of my vision. So I don't. I mean, there's like a straight line looking at you versus the left side of my body over here. So I adapt to that every day. I've gotten better, right, over the years of knowing that's not going to change. There's nothing we can do about that. I'm blessed that I got my license back a few months later, and I'm able to drive. Where I know there's so many people that they lose that freedom, um, but that's still a challenge, and it can still mess with you mentally, to know that you don't have 40% of your vision. And then the other deficit that I had to overcome, which was also extremely challenging that no one can see, is my vocal cord was paralyzed. So not only did I have the speech therapy to get the strength in my voice back, but it affects my ability to breathe. So it doesn't affect it on a daily basis or when I'm sleeping or anything. But as a girl that used to do boot camp style workouts 5 to 6 days a week and push myself to the point of exhaustion and exertion every day, and I couldn't leave the gym without being completely drenched in sweat and knowing that that was a de-stressor for me, right? I can't do that now because I have to be able to catch my breath. So I can't really do any cardio or anything, because I'll get winded extremely easily. So overcoming that, not only physically figuring out another way to work out, but as a distressor, how am I going to de-stress mentally, knowing I have to change such a big part of my life? So that was challenging. I found a new way and I love it, but it took some time.
So what's the new way?
Pilates is my passion. Um, I never would have considered that before, not judging anybody that did it. It just didn't seem like the type of workout for me that was going to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. But now
It
I've been
does
doing it
seem
now
weird.
almost
It seems
3.5
weird.
years.
Let's face it. It seems weird. Pilates, whatever. It seems weird.
Yeah. What are we doing? What do we do? Are we just stretching and doing a
But
few
it's
abs? No, it's hard every
amazing.
single time.
But it's amazing. I know.
Yeah.
So Pilates. So you do
Thank
that
you.
a few
So
times
yeah,
a
those
week.
are the two. Oh yeah, probably 6 days a week. I take one day off.
Okay, so you don't do things by
I love it.
halves.
Yeah, I love it. It's continued healing and therapy too, to do Pilates, right? I mean, I'm consistently working on my balance still, not and breathing and just stretching, and it really is such a great form of exercise and therapy for me.
So have you tried to play tennis again?
Not really. I have not stepped on a court in a while. And here's the thing, I wouldn't want to get out there and get frustrated because I know I'm not even close to where I was before. So that's the competitive side of me, knowing like if I'm not going to be able to do what I used to be able to do on the court, I'm good. I'll walk away.
All right, that's your challenge. Your challenge is to put that out of your head and just go onto the court and just be there. And even if you can't win a game because you're not going actually there to play a game, you're just going there to have a hit. That's what my challenge for you is. Just go back to the tennis court and just feel it and see what it's like. And if you don't like it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you might be like,
It would feel good. I know.
Yeah, give yourself that. Let yourself do that. And it doesn't matter that you aren't going to be as competitive as you were before, because you're trying to evolve from being that kind of person anyway. You don't really want to be in
Right.
that space because that's not the space that you're in now. You're in a different space.
Right. I can do that.
It's not for me to tell you what to do or give advice, unsolicited especially, but it just, to me, it sounds like, man, like that's what you must do. For me, and I say that because there'll be a lot of other stroke survivors going, oh, I couldn't possibly go back and try that again or do that again. And for me, it was riding a bike.
Right.
And I got on a bike,
Okay.
my balance is affected. And as a result, I would feel a bit less sturdy on my left side. And then also, I can't feel my left side of my body the same way. It's very numb. And that meant that my foot
That's
wouldn't.
how my right side is.
Yeah, right. Okay. So my
My
foot
my right. Yeah.
on the pedal would fall off the pedal, and the pedal would scrape my shins. And it was a real difficult thing for me to ride a bike. And I stopped doing it for about 4 years. I got sick of it and I couldn't do it anymore because it would be very tiring to turn the pedal. My leg would fatigue. So then I discovered electric bikes, and I realized that when I get on an electric bike and pedal, my foot doesn't fatigue as much. And I don't ride my
Okay.
bike for heaps of time or for very long distances. I just do it so that I can get a feel for this freedom and sense of, the wind rushing by your head and all that kind of stuff that I used to get when I was a kid. So after 4 years of
Mm.
refusing to get back on a bike because it was too scary or too dangerous, I found a solution and I got back on it. And now I do it maybe, 2 or 3 times a month for a couple of hours. And it just brings me so much joy. And it's a very gentle form of exercise as well, because like you, I really
Right.
am not going to run again. I'm not going to do very strenuous type of exercises like I used to do before. So this is just a lovely way.
Right.
And it took me 4 years to overcome it and find a solution to it. But most of the 4 years was me just overcoming my concern with it and my fear.
Exactly.
So you experience
I feel
right side numbness. Is that constant? Does it get worse when you're tired at the end of the day?
it does. And that's right. That's another thing that people don't see unless you tell them is my right side feels completely different than my left. Not that I have necessarily weakness, but the sensitivity to like hot and cold, I don't really feel that on my right side like I do my left. It's like literally a line directly down my body. My right leg is it's sensitive, it's tingly, and depending on the temperature or fatigue, it gets worse. I mean, there's days that it's definitely more tender than others. So
I try to explain that to people, and there's only one way that I can. It's like, I tell them, have you ever sat on your leg and it's gone numb and it feels tingly? And if
mm,
they say yes, I say, well, that's how my entire left side feels. And it starts from the middle of my head to there. And it
yes,
goes all the way down. And to bring a bit of humor into it, I tell them that it is halfway between every single part of my body. You get what I'm going? You get what I mean, yeah, guys?
yeah,
So
yeah.
they
That's
find it
hilarious.
really bizarre because I explain to them it's, every part of my body. Just get that in your head,
Yeah,
understand what it's like.
yeah. And
Uh,
I gotta ask on your left side, your left side is tingly.
yeah.
Does it affect the right side of your brain?
So
Because I feel like I'll feel tingliness on my left side of my head, but it's the right side of my body.
yeah. So exactly that. So my bleed was on the right side and the surgery was on the right side. And the left side feels strange and bizarre, although it's the healthy, quote unquote, the healthy side or the good side of me. It's the one that is always tight and stiff and always overcompensating. My muscles are always contracting in weird ways. So the
Yeah.
right side feels normal. And sometimes I have the days where I do the comparison. So do you ever do those days where you're going, oh shit, my left side feels weird again? I do that, and that frustrates me sometimes because sometimes I feel and I wish it wasn't doing that right now. I wish I was just feeling one, Do you get that? Do you have that experience?
Totally. I definitely do. I think the part I worry about is uh, feeling sensations in my head. On my left side, I'll feel sensations, and I don't know how else to explain it except, yeah, it'll feel tingly or sensitive on the inside, and it's being reassured that that's just the new, it's your new normal. Like, I met with my neurologist last week, actually, who I enjoy meeting with, and she's taken good care of me these last almost 4 years. But it's like, if you don't have any concerns, I guess then I need to, be okay with it. But it's, yeah, there's days where I'm like, what is that? Do I need to be worried? Do I need to call somebody? Do I need to just let it be? Meditate, calm down, and know that I'm okay.
That's fair, because I had that conversation around the 4 or 5 year mark as well. And my neurologist said, "You're good to go. And whatever
Yeah.
you're feeling, and whatever you've got, but you're good to go as far as your head is concerned." But I remember even about 18 months ago, I was in the hospital concerned about a
Mm,
potential stroke. So I've been I've been out of this, risk category for nearly 4 years, maybe nearly almost 5 years. And I had this really strange day where I felt really off, and my head was feeling really terrible. And at the same time, do you see this thing on my forehead, on my eye here, the little bump?
yeah.
So that's a
Yep.
blood vessel that has expanded or swollen, or something's happened to it. And that happened at the same time as this really bizarre, strange headache. So for me, it wasn't silly to go to my hospital where I had been treated and had surgery and say,
Not
"Guys,
at all.
I know it's probably nothing, but I'd rather check it out than go to bed
Oh,
worrying about it and thinking about it." And it turned out, of course, to be nothing and clear. But when I went there, they took it seriously. They said to me, "Look, we're glad you're here. We'd rather you come and let's check
right.
it out, and let's get to the bottom of it." And then I went home feeling relieved, and I let the headache just
Yep.
pass, and that was that.
Yeah. Peace of mind is everything.
Yeah, it really is. And
If you need,
I
go
don't
ahead.
think I'm going to go through the rest of my life ignoring a headache anymore.
And I still battle those too. I still get headaches, and that's what I met with her about recently. I got headaches before the stroke. I mean, I've had them since college,
Mm.
um, but I've usually been able to manage them if I got a migraine or something with a medicine. But after the stroke, I couldn't take that medicine anymore because it affected your blood vessels and things. So it was a risk to take it. So these these last 3.5 years, it's trying to find a medicine that's going to work as well as the one that worked every single time before, which we've yet to find the ideal medication. I take a couple preventatives and everything, but I'm getting ready to start something new here soon to see if we can keep them under control. But I appreciate her so much and never giving up and always willing to try new things with me to kind of make sure I'm in the least amount of pain as possible and to have as much peace of mind as I can every day.
Yeah, it's important with regards to, if it's okay, can we go for a little bit of time to intimacy? And not, I don't need details or anything like that, but for me, as a male, it was really, really important that I became intimate with my wife again as quickly as possible. And it was not obviously able to happen for a period of time, at least 6 weeks. My doctor specifically told me, because it was one of the first things that I specifically asked. And they said to me, for at least 6 weeks, because you've had a bleed and you've got um, uh, potentially still a blood vessel that hasn't healed properly, we don't want to get your
Mm,
blood pressure up and your heart rate going too crazy in case we cause another bleed. So you should refrain from being intimate if you can. And of course, we did the right thing and we refrained.
Right.
What's the thinking like for you? And I'm asking you because I've never specifically gone out of my way to ask somebody, but I'm kind of trying to get the female perspective on how important intimacy is and then how you go about navigating that.
A great question that I do not get asked all the time, that's for sure. I've been hesitant, these past 3.5 years. I don't know. I don't have a good reason why. Just, yeah, it's an important aspect in 90% of the marriages, I'm sure, but my husband and I are in such a great place with our relationship, and that might not be priority one anymore, but it's knowing that we're more than okay without that being a priority, and he's respected that, and it's still a work in progress, no doubt.
Yeah, that's fine. One of the issues that I had was the touch on my left side. So because my left side feels so different, it tender touch really hurts.
Yeah.
And that is a real challenge for me because I notice that during those moments, and that might put me off, or that might bother me, or that might bother me, and that might take my mind somewhere where it shouldn't be going at that time.
Right.
It's even an issue. The tender touch is even an issue when I'm just driving the car and I have my hand on the shift, and my wife reaches over and she just pops her hand on there, and even that bothers me. That annoys me because she's being tender, and I'm saying to her, look, don't do that, don't touch my hand, or don't be tender. And that's kind of weird because I'm trying to not be something that she's doing to express, love and connection with.
Yeah, that's hard to explain too, because there will be times where he'll want to, show a gesture, or touch, or whatever that is, and just be simply kind, and it's more of like what am I agitated about, or why do I not want that, or it's definitely still working with myself and through myself to figure out the attitude towards it, and it's interesting to see the things that didn't drive me crazy before but do now, and not just when it comes to him, but just like the littlest things, like loud noise or bright lights, or we'll be driving down the road and like hitting speed bumps or something like that. Like that, I'm very sensitive to that type of movement. Those things just drive me crazy. I don't know why, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, I can relate.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I can relate to that a little bit. So especially, and a lot of stroke survivors on the podcast, there's been more than 120, will tell you that light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, and too much stuff going on, for example, in a public place like a shopping center or a market or something like that, is overwhelming. And I avoided going out for many months to not experience those overwhelming situations. But one of the things that makes me cringe is seeing people get struck in the head, or trying to watch the boxing, or it really makes me cringe, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable about it. And I am always kind of finding a way to protect my head if I'm in a situation where we're not being rough, or there's just, I don't know, if there's just a potential to hit me on the head. I don't want to have a bar of it. And if you touch my head, you're going to know about it. I'm going to let you know. It's going to be pretty terrible.
Yeah. I feel the exact same way about protecting my neck and head. But because of this, I don't know how I got this this tear in my artery in the first place. So like even if I go to a salon now with my hair, and you have to get in those sinks where there's that dip, it drives me crazy. I hate it. I don't like it. We try and protect it and put extra towels back there to make sure I'm as comfortable as I possibly can. But like we're doing certain stretches even in class. There's things I won't do because I'm like, it's not worth me feeling the way I feel, even if I'm not doing anything wrong.
I reckon you're not being too overcautious, because I something triggered when you said putting your head back in the salon, that is a common cause of creating damage to people's necks in many various ways. And I've never put my head in one of those situations, but I can imagine that, if you have a sensitivity there and you put your head in that position, that could cause a problem. Also,
Yes.
chiropractic for some people has been catastrophic.
People have had strokes.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
a sensitivity to a blood vessel that nobody is aware of, not even the chiropractor, and it creates an issue, and then they have a stroke. And also, one of the people who I interviewed, a lady called Clodagh Dunlop, I can't remember which episode she was on. She was a police officer and she was involved in a collision in a car at work.
Mm,
It wasn't a dramatic collision, but that
yeah.
force, that small force of her making her move her head backwards and forwards, created a tear which turned into a clot a few months later and then caused a stroke later. So the whole
Yeah.
idea that you're going to be protective around the sensitive part of your body is pretty fair, and it's a pretty good way to go about protecting your life, especially if you feel like you have a vulnerability there.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely find myself extremely aware of things that maybe I used to be able to do, but now it's like it's not worth it. Whether it's going skiing or riding a roller coaster or some of those more active activities that we used to enjoy doing from time to time, and now it's like, nah, I'm good, and it's really being okay with that.
Yeah. You don't miss it, do you?
It's
I
not worth it.
know what you mean, because there's certain things I just do not miss. I just will not go there, and it doesn't matter that I'm not doing it anymore. I've experienced that, and I
That's
got
right.
my feel, and that's it. I'm done with it.
Yep, I completely agree with you.
Tell me about, you seem like you're very proactive in your approach to recovery. As we wrap up, I'd love to ask you about nutrition and what you've done different, or what you've continued to do, or what you've started doing with regards to your food. Because I imagine when you're playing tennis and you're in the competitive sport like that, you are really dialing in on your nutrition. How did that evolve or change or stay the same after stroke?
Um, it's interesting. I not a whole lot because I've always cared about my nutrition and kind of the everything in moderation, you know, method. But really, this last year through the quarantine that we're having, in the States since last March, it's really allowed my husband and I to care a little bit more, right? Because we've just cooked at home so much more than we ever have. So finding the joy in I do more than he does as far as like just cooking and finding better recipes, healthier recipes to eat at the house, has really helped us both out. So granted, it's still doing my Pilates and still staying active, and luckily we have a dog who we take out multiple times a day. So finding that balance of activity as well as the nutrition piece, it's always been important to me. Not a whole lot has changed per se on that level. How about you?
Yeah, well, at the beginning I did really well, and even continued to do quite well. I didn't drink alcohol for the best part of 5 years, and I stopped eating gluten and caffeine and sugar
Oh,
and all those things that I realized I started to pay attention to when I was eating them, where they were making me feel unwell or they were making me feel sluggish or slow, especially with cognitive fatigue. Caffeine gives you a boost, but then you have the drop off, and that causes fatigue. Sugar does the same thing, and bread, like from wheat and gluten and all that, had always interfered with my digestive system. And when you have a sluggish digestive system, you really have a sluggish brain. So I started to dial in on my nutrition and really took out a lot of the inflammatory foods, and I call them the Fun 5. And I've done a little course around it. And those Fun 5 foods include alcohol, dairy, gluten, sugar, and caffeine. And I just became this most amazing version of myself physically. I had become a far more efficient version of myself, and I had less bad days as a result of making those changes. Now, those changes didn't happen overnight, and they didn't happen very quickly. I dropped one of them off maybe every 6 to 12 months, so that I wasn't being crazy about it. And
I think that would set you up for failure if you did. But I'm interested in your Fun 5, and would love to learn more.
Yeah, so I interviewed a nutritionist and her partner, who was a performance coach. So I got to the bottom of me really understanding from two other people's perspective why it's important to minimize those food items. And it really reinforced in me what was important to help my brain be optimum. And then we got to that point of being able to take one off just over time. And after 3 or 4 years, I had got to that point. But that didn't mean that when I went out with my friends and we wanted to enjoy an amazing dinner or a night out, it didn't mean that I didn't indulge. It meant that I just didn't do those things for the majority of the time. And then when I needed to catch up with people and have fun and just be normal, then I would be normal. And then I would recover well from that, and everything would be okay. So that's what I did. It's a real big conversation. We could go on forever and ever. And I really appreciate your time and for being persistent with me and reaching out, because we did have a little bit of time there where I wasn't in the zone of doing podcast episodes or taking emails from people or anything like that. And I just want people to know that if you ever get to that point where it's too much and you don't want to take emails and have conversations and you want to step away from life a little bit, that you can, and that's really important for stroke recovery. But your kind way of just reminding me that we still needed to do this podcast is what I needed. So I really appreciate the fact that you did that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, I was intrigued the first time we had connected. I don't know when that was, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. But yeah, we, I got busy too, and I'm working on my coaching business, and so I've got plenty on my plate. But I just think to be able to share, our stories, and maybe because maybe someone out there hears it and needs to hear it and wants to hear it and wants to be in a better place than they are right now with their recovery.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Discover how to heal your brain after stroke. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com. Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.